Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. You can be unstoppable too. All you got to do is read my book, Rocket Fuel, Convert Setbacks, Become Unstoppable. Just go to mikecroc.com/book, mikecroc.com/book, and you will find how to start feeling first like you're unstoppable and then going after it and becoming unstoppable. Grant Cardone wrote the foreword, told everybody in that foreword about what Rocket Fuel's meant to him and his life and business. So go get the book. Today's guest, Staci Wallace, is a friend of mine. I happened to pop onto her podcast in the past, so she was so kind to come on to here to the What Are You Made Of show. She is a leading expert in the field of business psychology and life mastery. She has helped raise companies from scratch into the hundreds of millions and sales teams into the hundreds of thousands. She has shared a stage with 5 U.S. presidents and continues to help top. First of all, I can't even believe that because she looks so young, but I had to stop there. She looks so young, 5 U.S. presidents, and continues to help top-tier executives, business owners, and serial entrepreneurs achieve remarkable results in both business and life. And she does it from a faith-based perspective that links purpose, passion, and progress in the 3 Ps in a unique way that leads to exponential results. I hate reading bios. I love all about them, but I like digging and talking and having conversations. So Staci, welcome to the show.
Man, it's my privilege to be here. I've got some energy in this house.
Yeah, buddy. That's the only way we roll. So we have a tradition around here of asking people when they come on the show first, what are you made of?
Sugar and spice, everything nice, and maybe a little bit of cayenne pepper.
Yeah, that's where the fire is. I was waiting for the fire.
That's where the fire is. Yeah. I'm definitely fueled by fire. So that's the name of our movement.
For those that aren't watching and just listening, she's got a shirt on. It says Fueled by Fire. I have a shirt on. It says Setbacks with a line through it, Rocket Fuel. We align very well. And we talked about this on her show, but I want to dig into that because, you described yourself pretty well there because you are a sweet lady. You're very kind. But you do have something about you that is fiery. I will tell you that. And I noticed that. So let's go back. You can take me back all the way to when you were in diapers or anywhere up till now. Where do you want to start? Let's go back to what you're made of. Like where do we want to start?
So the fire for me does go back all the way to diapers. Actually, I was born. So people that know the achievements that I've been able to do, it's pretty amazing. And being able to scale companies in the hundreds of millions, that's not something you get to say every day. 5 U.S. president. I am 51 years old. So thank you for the young look comment. I'll just take that to the bank right now. But I've just seen some remarkable things in my life. And one of the things about being on stage or being able to communicate or scale companies, it's one thing if you can do it and people say, wow, I think that feeds narcissism, that feeds our ego. But turning wows into methods and strategies that you can then give to other people that they can duplicate, now you've created legacy and impact. And so for me, obviously it started when I was little. I was a very, very sick baby. And I was diagnosed with a disease called cystic fibrosis. So anybody that knows cystic fibrosis, it is a disease that 51 years ago, that was a death curse. I mean, now they have therapies that they can extend life, but back then it's like 2 or 3 years old, your baby's probably going to die. Well, I happened to be raised in a faith-based family where my dad was a preacher. My grandpa was a missionary and raised up missionaries and sent them all around the world. I always say I'm 49% boss lady, but I'm 51% missionary because I really do care about extravagant generosity and helping other people get to the place where they're fulfilling their divine mandate. And so when I was a little girl, my parents hear this diagnosis, and rather than just believing and falling into depression, anxiety, they took me to the church and they started praying. And from that day forward, now I had just overwhelming pneumonia after my lungs were filled with fluid. But that night they said, she will live and not die, and she will proclaim good news to the nations. From that night forward, I never had pneumonia again. They called it a modern day miracle. And so to this day, it's the one thing that I use more than anything is my lungs, my vocal ability. When I was touched with a 5.5 octaves of singing, and ended up, becoming a country music singer and recording 5 albums and all that. But right where the enemy of my life, of my destiny, of my purpose, right where he tried to kill me, is actually where God wanted to use me the most. And that's to be a communicator, to use my lungs to propel people's future. And so when I say fueled by fire, I mean it. I know that there's something that God has given me that's allowed me to execute in boardrooms as a woman when it's supposed to be, when it was supposed to be taboo. I mean, I'm 51 years old. The whole feminine energy thing isn't new for me. I mean, I've been around for a little while, but I've been leaning into boardrooms, negotiating in rooms with billionaires and hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, doing it because I know I'm on this planet to make a difference. And that sometimes means bringing two corporations together to see something in alignment that precedes a bigger assignment on those two businesses. And sometimes it does require a different look. Usually in a boardroom, I'm the only female. I don't think that makes me more special. It just means I might have a different perspective. And when we work together in harmony, man, you can pour rocket fuel on a real room like that if everybody shows up with their superpower as opposed to their kryptonite.
Yeah, which is ego.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So in these negotiations, like what are some like one or two, three things that you really were good at that made you so good? I mean, what's something
Listening.
that, yeah, listening.
Yeah, listening. I think a lot of times when we're building business or we're working to scale, we go in with an agenda, but the most powerful person in the room is the one who can listen the longest and speak when it's appropriate. And so some people feel I need to speak because I need to make myself feel heard. I can think of one room specifically, Mike. It was a very big negotiating room. It was actually a takeover, and it was two companies trying to take over another company in telecommunications. It was the whole takeover was going to happen in the middle of the night. I was senior vice president of a major telecom company. And I remember sitting in the room, and everybody in the room was talking about how many subs there are, what the acquisition would look like, why it needed to be done in the middle of the night so that the competitor, and this is stuff that happens in high levels, right? How to make that transition quickly. And I sat there for about 30 minutes and I was totally silent. Most people don't know me to be silent. So one of the CEOs of very large companies said, "You're making us nervous. Why aren't you talking?" And in that moment, usually I'm enough cayenne that I don't cry, but in that moment, the 51% missionary came out in me, and tears running down my face. I said, I'm brokenhearted that nobody right now is considering the mom that has 4 kids, and those cell phones that you're about to disrupt. She's going to be disrupted. That real estate agent that's built 23 years of real estate on that cell phone number, you're about to disrupt that number. And once it's gone, they can't get it retrieved. And I said, I think we're missing the bigger picture here. And so in that moment, while it was a very emotional moment, obviously it spoiled everybody's ego ether. What it did do is have everybody just for a moment sit back and say, wait a minute, maybe there's a better way. And maybe the better way is not the way we're looking at it right now. Mike, I really believe it's not a female that does that. It's just us being humans and thinking and listening in rooms of negotiation. The brand promise for the company that I'm executive vice president for, a telecom company. And our brand promise is making life better for many. And how do you do that with like something as tactile as communications or phones or text marketing? How do you do that? You do that because your filter is this really helping that small business owner, for example, do life better? When you think of HubSpot, Salesforce, all these companies, why they thrive is because at the bottom level, they're looking for ways, how can they improve the life of the end user? And if that is not our filter as corporations, then we're missing the mark.
Yeah. You have to have that. I love breaking that down to simplifying it, just a decision whether you're going towards something or away from something, building or destroying, creating or destroying. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it works in your life and works in businesses. And the other thing is whether it's a $1 million deal or a $1 billion deal, it's all just numbers,
Right.
right?
It's just
It's
extra
all just
commas.
numbers. And because, a lot of the people that are dealing with the $1 million transactions, that's as big to them as it is for the guys that are in the $1 billion room, and that billion number to those guys, so
And Mike, I work a lot with people. Women, girls, our nonprofit organization, and women who are homeless. And they're working on getting the first comma, let alone the third and fourth comma. And so it's all relative who you're who am I talking to? And am I listening to what really needs to happen in the room? And we've seen some amazing stories, and we use your line about, pouring rocket fuel on it. Really, our tagline in our podcast is when you have a setback, don't take a step back, but get ready for your comeback. Because sometimes a setback is actually a setup for you to rethink, reboot, or recalibrate, or even reinvent your life. And when I'm talking to somebody who's literally living in a car and they've been told their entire life that they can't, you give me that person all day long. Give me 30 days with that person. And we get in and we begin to change their mindset, change the way their thoughts are programmed towards their behaviors, teach them habit mastery on a new mindset. Man, I don't believe anyone is too far gone. I don't believe anyone, even if you're listening right now and you are on your third failure of business, it's okay. If you fall down 7 times, get up 8, because you can't. That's the power of neuroplasticity and neuroscience is you can change anything.
Yeah. It's also called being stubborn and perversely unyielding. That's the definition of stubborn, perversely unyielding. I say that a lot. I have, that's one of
Are
my
you
mottos.
stubborn?
Yeah, damn right. I'm stubborn, but it's only good on the, it's not the wrong thing when it's on the right thing. If you're perversely unyielding towards something, it means you're going to get it. And that's, so let's go back to when you were younger though, when you were healed, because that's important. And I don't want to glaze over that. So, sometimes I have eczema that breaks out on my hands on the bottom. It gets really dry. And, I started praying about it and I started paying attention to it because I think God works his magic. I won't call it magic, but his power, right? Through us. Like we have to agree to it.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it unless you agree to it, right? Because we have free will. So I start paying attention to this and I'm like really like paying attention as I'm praying, not just in prayer, but paying attention to it. And it went away when I started doing that. Now I've had this for a long time. It's not like something I put medicine on and it healed it. It's not something I changed up. I was started to paying attention to this as I was praying and focusing my faith on it. And so I believe that story was, that growing up, that your parents really focused on it and trusted in God and used the power of God. We can't, like I said, it doesn't work unless you use it.
Yeah.
And so
well, nothing was meant to get to us. I mean, first off, you got to believe that there's a power bigger than yourself. You got to believe that I believe in the God of the creator of the universe, right? So whatever you name that, but for me, it's God. So I believe that nothing can get to me unless God allows it. I mean, he's that big. Like he could stop it. He could stop cancer. He could stop that car accident. He could stop whatever. But if it does get to me, if I'm truly surrendered as a vessel, then that means it's meant to get through me. And that's what I do with people is I help them identify whatever. I have something called the sweet spot audit. It's knowing your superpower, your superpower and your kryptonite, your strength, your weakness, your energy expansion, because there is a way to expand energy, your execution abilities, and then your ability to time expand, which we often talk about time blocking or time management. But really none of those, that's blocking 24 hours. What we want to do is we want to be like God. God is timeless. So we've got to figure out how to expand beyond my 24 hours, where the only way you can do that is through collaboration. And so now if you and we identify a synergy and I got 24 hours and you got 24 hours, like before coming on, you're like, Staci, you're on Clubhouse. And I'm like, yeah, no, I haven't really I'm on, but I haven't really maximized it yet. And you say, actually I'm leaning into that right now. So now my 24 and your 24 equals 48 because I get to learn from what you've put into your 24. So if we begin to create alignments bigger than the individual assignments, now we can go 24, 48, 72. You start bringing people in though that are not in alignment. That's when you go back to your energy expansion. You start getting energy suck. So now you lose energy. So keeping that sweet spot in alignment with the right people, the right scaffolding of our lives, the scaffolding helps you go to the next level. And just because you've had scaffolding for this season to get you to a 1-story building or get you where you are right now, doesn't mean that's going to be the same partnerships, the same people that need to be the scaffolding for your next level. And so I mean, I appreciate that because I look at you and I say, wow, we've got so many things in alignment, but there's things in your 24 that'll probably make me better. And there's probably things in my 24 that can make you better. Just
power.
I love
that. Yep. I love that. And it's really doesn't add, it multiplies.
Yeah. Right.
It really does. It's like 2 people aren't 2 people. It's like 4. So yeah, it's really powerful. So so then growing up from there and then by the way, I lost some friends to cystic fibrosis and generally most people don't make it. Well, back then they did it, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just
Even now, there's a lot of, and I get a lot of folks that call, and I've seen people healed, and I've seen people that endure. I've seen the same thing. I've seen blind eyes open up. I've seen 3 people raised from the dead. I've seen that same power that you're talking about with your hands. And I think that's why we experience the miraculous, is not just so that we'll experience and it gets to us, but so that we now use that story to get it through us, so we can help other people realize that with faith, anything is possible. And
Yeah.
I've seen remarkable changes happen in people's lives. And I've seen other people that part of their testimony is being in the hospital, talking to the nurses, having a great attitude, even with CF, I've seen little kids that unfortunately pass away, but their life was a miracle to the nurses that they had the moment to work with. So again, I think it's perspective, how you look at it, but certainly I know that my life was touched, and has many times. I lost my voice, actually. I was traveling all over the world, speaking and singing, and using your vocal cords both ways. Like, most singers aren't speakers, and most speakers aren't singers. Well, I happen to be both. And when I speak, I'm usually not real sweet and just talking quiet. I mean, I'm in there and I'm, I think I'm a rapper, is actually what I think it is. And so I've got my rock star on when I'm speaking and bringing that energy to the room. What it was doing is it was trashing my vocal cords. And so I would lose my voice. And I was speaking at a church, a pastor named TD Jakes, and has a really large church. And so I remember saying, God, if you'll just get me through this one weekend, I promise I'll check myself into Vanderbilt University and I'll get my vocal cords checked out. And so, of course, I lost my voice that weekend. And before I went on stage, it was like, boom, my voice came back. And I was like, all right, so he's holding up his end of the deal. I got to hold up mine. So as soon as there were 3 services, it's a really big church, so they do multiple services. And so after the end of the 3rd service, my voice was trash. I sounded like a little squeaky mouse. And I ended up checking myself into Vanderbilt University. They end up putting the nodules, the things down your nose, and they look at your nodules and all. I had scar tissue, and they said my vocal cords looked like hamburger meat. And the guy said, well, we're going to have to prep you for surgery. 2 weeks. We need your vocal cords to rest. We need the swelling to go down. And do not talk. Don't cough. Don't sneeze. Carry a pen and paper with you everywhere. They gave me a button that says I can't speak, which makes people think that you're, probably deaf and dumb. So when I would go to stores, people would like as if I'm deaf, but just because you can't speak doesn't mean you can't hear. Right. So anyhow, after 2 weeks, I went back to the doctor, never broke the rules one time. Didn't squeak, didn't speak, didn't sneeze. I go back in, they hook me up and they say aw. And I say, aw. And they say, sing aw. And I said, aw. And so of course you got stuff down your throat. They're watching it on a screen. The guy goes, excuse me just a second. He leaves, he comes back with all these interns. He says, do it again. And so I did it. He said, speak to me. And I've got this thing down my nose and my throat. And I was speaking, and he turns around and he says, I'll just tell you this right now. He goes, what did you do over the last 2 weeks? And he's looking at his interns. And I said, I obeyed. I didn't talk. But I also called all I have a lot of friends who are pastors and speakers and communicators, and I asked them all to pray for me. And some of them are men and women of faith, and some of them were just friends. But they all knew the drama behind losing your voice as a singer and a communicator. And I said, and I took Post-it notes and I stuck them everywhere in my house, on every light, on every door, on the toilet handle. Everywhere I was at, I had words of faith. I had scriptures. I had messages, so that I would keep before my eyes the outcome I wanted to see. So I was saying what I wanted to see, because I was believing that if I went back to the doctor, I would see what I'd been saying. So he said, wait a minute. So you're saying that you had people pray and you did Post-it notes? And I said, yes. He turns around and he looks at the interns and he says, you guys know I am not a man of faith, but this is a God factor that's happened here, because I've never seen vocal cords like this reverse themselves. So the question is, whatever we're in, is it possible to reverse what happens in the human body, to reverse what happens under gravity? Well, I believe it is, if you believe there's something beyond that.
So
and I call it the 40th floor and up.
Wait a minute. I'll let you start with the 40th floor and up in a second, but I got to tell you, this is why you look so young too. Is this why? Yeah,
if we can bottle that up.
His face, like, I could beat this gravity.
That's right.
So, but what do you call it? The 40th floor and up?
40th floor and up. So Obviously we run in some of the same groups and we've got some of the same people, and it's just amazing what the human intellect can do. I have years studied neuroplasticity and just the power of the brain and the things that we can reverse in the human body. I call, we've got non-conscious, we've got subconscious. I just believe that that takes you to, and there's some of the greatest gurus in the earth that can get to that place of what I call the 39th floor. But there's a place that we can go that is beyond that. It's beyond science. It's beyond form and matter. I call it the super consciousness. In my personal faith, I call it the mind of Christ. And being able to tap into God consciousness. He doesn't look at anger and resentment and anxiety and racism and all of that the way we do. His filter, although he is a God of justice, his character is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, long suffering, self-control. When you begin to spend more of your time in the 40th floor and up, then you begin to experience what I call heaven on earth. There's a scripture in my faith that says, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Why would he say that if it wasn't possible to live heaven on earth?
Right.
And so for me, even when I'm offended or I experience brokenness or failure, I quickly say, am I responding to this? Because I can't change what's happening to me. I can't change the situation of what happened in 2020, but I can change how I react to it. Am I reacting 39th floor and down? Which might be, generosity is there, kindness is there, love is there, but not necessarily abnormal or super consciousness really takes you to a place where you do things that aren't a part of logic or understanding. Yep. It's a whole nother mindset. And I really believe that's where miracles lie. That's where the rocket fuel, I believe, that's where it comes from.
Yep. No, and this is inspired. I think that we're naive. The God that we believe in is an all-powerful, omnipotent God. We're naive to think that there's limitations. To me, it's like a slap in the face of our Creator, and I would never do that. So I think the reason people don't see more miracles and see things happen is because they don't believe. They have little faith.
Yeah.
So if
so good
would start focusing on faith and focusing on belief before they see it, then they would start seeing more miraculous and wonderful things. And you know what? We're all human, and we all go through our phases where we're more faithful than others or have more faith than others. But those that are, here's the thing, those that are super successful, they have faith, they have belief.
Yeah.
And, I think that, I just want to, get this message out to more people because it's so powerful. And then, like I said, if I'm looking at my fingers and I can heal my fingers through God by praying and just paying attention and being focused on it, then somebody could probably take their ankle that got sprained and really focus on that ankle and pray over that ankle and really
listen. Science backs that up. I've seen people that have completely jacked up their back, for example, broken their back, and they're laying prostrate, can't move, and all they have is their mind. All they have is their faith. And yet, through the power of intention and the power of aligning your thoughts and your emotions towards your physical body, if you really believe in dominion, if you really believe that there's like you said, like God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, then if you tap into that versus my limitation right now is I've broken my leg and I can't move, but your body was intended to heal itself. It was given to us with special powers that we should be able to regenerate. That's the amazing thing about when you cut yourself and your blood begins to coagulate. And it's like, wow, that is amazing. How do you get into partnership with the blessings of God versus constant? Yeah. And so what you do is when you get in alignment with things that are already the laws of you jump off a building, you are not in alignment with the law of gravity. So no matter how much you try to say, no, I'm going to make this work on my own. Gravity, there's certain laws of the universe that you cannot break. But if you get in alignment with gravity, now you can actually take off in a plane and you can learn how to ride the waves. It's the same thing if you're being overwhelmed by the ocean, or you feel like there's this ocean of chaos and confusion and frustration and anxiety, and you feel overwhelmed by the waves of life. Well, if you get under gravity, if you get under the wave, then you're going to completely be crushed. Otherwise, pull out a surfboard, learn how to ride the waves of life and go, you know what, this is going to pass. It's not 2020 passed, came and it went. But then how do you get back on top and say, you know what, I'm going to take what came against me and I'm going to learn how to surf it so I can use it in order to propel me forward. It's the power of tension. The
Yeah.
tension of a bow and arrow, when
Mhm.
you pull back, that's what creates the trajectory.
Yep.
Pressure produces progress if you get on the right side of pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're speaking my language. So a couple more questions as we wind down. How do you get on to stage with 5 US presidents?
Right? I'd like to say that's because I'm so nice and I have so much talent. But
But,
man,
but
I
no,
didn't
there's a
go to
way that but there's a way that it happened.
there's a practical
So,
way.
because I say this because where you are right now is your fault. Like
Exactly.
everything that you decided to do, took action on, words you spoke, whatever, everything led you to right here, right now. So you got on stage with 5 US presidents. You can say, like everybody could say, well, you're lucky, you're nice. No, it's the decisions and actions you took. So how did you do that?
Yeah. So let me just put a little icing on that. I also sang at the Olympics, opening and closing ceremonies. I also sang at the inaugural prayer breakfast for President Clinton. There's doors that have opened up to me that are supernatural. I really believe it because I don't know
Mhm.
any politicians.
Yep.
However, I grew up in a place where my mom and dad, I was blessed that they said anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Mhm.
And I wanted to play basketball. I was picked for the junior Olympic basketball team. I was the skinniest, scrawniest, tiniest, flattest little girl you ever did see. And my dad said, you want to play basketball? You're just going to have to work a little harder. You're going to have to put in time that other people don't put in time because your size could be a deficiency, but your size doesn't have to be. If you're willing to practice longer, if they practice for an hour, you practice for 2 hours. And so I would get in there and I'd do the deal. If they would shoot free throws for, everybody shoot till you get 2 free throws in a row. My dad would say, do it till you get 5 and then do it till you get 10. And my ball handling skills became superior. I started averaging 23 to 28 points a game. And it wasn't about, wow, I'm more skilled. I wasn't more skilled. I had to do a granny shot for like 2 years just to get it up to the rim. But
Mhm.
eventually, with tenacity, consistency, something I call the 1% method. Every day, just get 1% better than the day before. You say you want to lose weight. Well, today, maybe go for a walk to the stop sign and back. That's 1%. And then tomorrow, maybe it's the next stop sign, but you continue to improve your progress, micro distinctions of progress every day. And that's really what happened with my singing. I started off singing. I just kept practicing and practicing. I would go down. We had basements. I was in Canada and we had basement. I had a sound system down there. I would practice and I used a song. I entered a contest, ended up winning the Olympic thing. So I got to sing at the Olympics with David Foster, opening and closing ceremonies. And then I just continued to say, in one of my goals is one day I will sing for the president of the United States. I kept saying that. I put it on my dream boards, put it on the walls. One day I didn't know anybody in politics. And then one day I got a call. Somebody got a CD I had called Cinderella, A Dream Come True, which was a motivational song about, God has a plan for your life. Well, somebody passed that CD to another somebody, to a person that happened to be a secretary in the White House, to who was at the time Hillary Clinton. She was the first lady or coming in as first lady. And they passed it along to somebody that was putting together the ladies' first tea. And they called me and said, would you be willing to sing at her first tee? Well, I happened to be scared. I wanted to say yes. I was everything inside of me wanted to say yes because it was on my board for so long to sing for the president of the United States. But I was scheduled to do a missionary trip the same week. And everything inside of my ego wanted to cancel the missionary trip. I can always go back to South Africa. But my integrity said, you be faithful in the little things. I'll make you ruler over much. And so I canceled the first lady's tea, went to South Africa, saw unbelievable transformation and miracles take place the time that I was down there. And when I came back, like a week after I got back, got a call and they said, well, if you can't do the first lady's tea, would you come for the inaugural prayer breakfast? And so it might've been different timing that I don't really remember what the timing was, but it ultimately, how do you do that? How do you do that, Mike? You don't do that. You've got to have the intention of where you want to head. You got to line your character, your integrity up with it. Now that was back, I don't know, a lot of years ago. Olympics was 1988. Like I said, I'm not young anymore, but all of that, same with the presidents. I got a call one day. I'd gone through a devastating divorce, devastating. I was suicidally depressed. I'd married a rodeo cowboy. We were 7 months into it. He left me for another life. I was crushed, devastated. And when I was flipping channels, watching TV, I saw these Christian people. One person had pink hair. I thought that's why people don't follow Christianity, because people are weird. And I remember on that channel long enough that it held my attention to the next commercial that said, you need a change in your life? Come to the Believers Rally in Fort Worth, Texas, and we'll show you what it means to have a revolutionary change. I ended up saying, all right, God, if you either meet me there or that's where I kill myself. And I had my death planned out. I ended up going to that. That would have been 21.
Okay.
So 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And in that season, that shift in my life, I went from, I want to be a Grammy award-winning artist. I was nominated for New Female Vocalist of the Year in country music. And so I had these aspirations that I wanted to be a somebody based upon the opinion of others, to going into that place completely broken, but then hearing for a message that said, you know what, no matter how broken, abused, washed up, washed out you think you are, you can still use that story too. And that day I made a shift in my life that wasn't about being a somebody so that I could impress somebody, but how can I use this part of my life to help somebody going through the exact same thing? So I ended up shifting to my next album was a motivational Christian album that spoke more about faith and positivity. I had that album recorded, didn't have a single person to buy it. We didn't have the same methods of selling stuff online. You were either with a record label or you weren't. And so I ended up, my parents were feeling very concerned about me. They were like, you're getting so spiritually minded, you're going to be no earthly good. So we're supposed to be at this motivational conference in Hawaii. We want you to go and take our tickets. And I'm like, all right, I'll suffer for Jesus. You send me to Hawaii, I'm in. I went, I'm sitting there as a participant, nobody in the room, nobody. I'm sitting there on the second row. The guy that's heading it up, my parents must have known him or called him. They said, you know, are you Staci? At the time I was Wirch. Are you Staci Wirch? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, do you have a song that you could sing for us? And I said, yeah, I do. Now, back then we were carrying cassettes, right? So I go in the back and I give the guy my cassette. I sing one song that I wrote called It's Not Over Till I Win, which is an attitude song about coming back strong. And while I sang, a guy named Peter Lowe walked into the lobby of the hotel, heard me singing, walked into the room, watched me sing. And afterwards he motions to me, goes, did you write that song? And I said, yes. He said, would you be interested in singing that at one of my events? I didn't have a clue who he was. I said, well, I'll have to talk to my agent. I didn't have an agent. I had a mom that was like booking me out. Yeah. And I said, I'll have to talk to my agent. And he says, well, check this date, gave me a date. Anyhow, they ended up flying me and my mom out to this first event. And that first event happened to have like 25,000 people at it. First U.S. president, Colin Powell, Margaret Thatcher. And for 12 years, I was on the Get Motivated Success Tour with all those speakers and all those. Is that crazy? That's so when awesome. You say, how does it happen? I believe it's number one, being surrendered to the call on your life, the bigger purpose of your life, saying yes, even when you're scared, completely scared out of your wits. You know you're not qualified for the room, but you step into it anyhow. And then practicing and getting good at your trade so that when the timing comes, you're ready, willing, and able to execute at the highest level.
I love it. That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
So awesome. Well, look, how can my audience engage with you, Staci, and also find you? Like, what's the best place?
You can, StaciWallace.com is the easiest way. Obviously I'm on every type of social channel that you can imagine, but it's all Staci Wallace, because go to StaciWallace.com. You can see it on the website. We have a movement called the Fuel by Fire movement right now. And I really have a clear intention to help women recognize this energy and this strength of how to step into positions of influence so that women can really gain that confidence that they need. Many of them are like at six figures, but they know they're called to do something more. And it's not about going from 6 to 7. It's about going from I want 7 to I actually want to leave legacy. And when you get the numbers and the commas out of your mind, you start to think impact. Like you said at the very beginning, impact is so much greater than commas. It really makes a difference in the world.
Yeah, I love it. Final question. Rocket fuel is all about turning setbacks into rocket fuel. Anything that would come your way that would normally slow down the average person, stop them, stunt them, whatever, and taking all that discouragement, the hate, the setbacks and letdowns, difficulties, and storing it in your tank to convert it into rocket fuel instead of in your trunk where it weighs you down. What does that
Mhm.
mean to you in 2 to 3 sentences?
Authority. So I believe there's a triple A: ability, anointing, and authority. Ability is your skill set. Everybody's got it. Anointing is the gifts that you've been sovereignly given by God that have a special touch on them. Like Whitney had an amazing special touch on her voice. When she would sing, you'd feel that spine tingly goosebump feeling. Problem where most people miss it is there's another level, and it's the anointing of taking dominion over the voices, over the outsets, over all of the setbacks, the opposition that comes against you. And now you operate in a position of authority and dominion where voices that come, they just don't get the right to take control anymore. They don't have the power. So you have to put your mouth into action to speak against those words, to speak against adversity, and really allow your words to line up with the things that you're wanting to see. So for me, it would be authority. Definitely. When people say, what's the difference that they see when they come to one of my classes or one of my events, is I walk on that stage like a lion. I'm going to roar one time, and I'm going to see if anyone in that room has more dominion over me. And if they don't, which I don't believe they do, because greater is he that's in me than anyone in the room, then I'm going to know that I have the ability to shift the room. And
Yeah.
if you can operate in a boardroom, a classroom, a crack room, if you can start to take dominion or authority over the circumstances in your life, you'll operate to where you can shift the room as well.
Love it. Love it. Well said, Staci. Thank you so much for being on here. And if you ever need anything from me, I'm a phone call or message away. I'll be there for you.
Love
Okay.
it. Awesome. Appreciate
You
it,
guys,
man.
you guys have been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc, and the lioness, Staci Wallace. Thank you for listening, guys. Keep coming back. And until next time, become unstoppable.